20 homes that were defined as politically hostile.
Mm-hmm.
Did the teams under you, did they note specifically the addresses of each one of those homes?
No, they do not. Again, we do not do PII. So when you drop a dot, it just shows logistical coordinates, and then you just put the details there. But it doesn't show the street.
So I'm curious, why not?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
What's up, everybody? It's your girl Mika, and we're back for another Red Cup Talks because once we got the Red Cup, we're about to spill some truth. And today I wanted to come on and talk about the FEMA worker that was fired because she is now speaking out. She went on to Roland Martin's platform and decided to spill the beans because she says this is just normal behavior inside of FEMA, and she doesn't understand why she was fired for doing what everybody does in that culture and what the rules actually say. So I want you to sit with me through this interview so you can see specific points that she makes, and then we'll go from there. Here we go. Okay, so what I want to get into is her explanation here on political hostility, because that is a major component of why she said she skipped homes. All right, here we go.
So you talked about hostility. This was a text message that you sent us where one of the folks out there said, "Good morning, LeGros Road is politically hostile. We are not canvassing this street any further. Moved on to North Lakeview Road. Great decision. Thanks for the update."
Exactly. So my senior leadership was aware of the amount of encounters that was going on in the field. Again, this was my second time and a second crew in Florida and experiencing unwelcomed behavior from the residents. Now, not all Floridians have been unpleasant, but for the most part, the ones that are very passionate about their disdain for FEMA, they have no problem expressing it.
So essentially what she's saying is that text message that you saw was one of her workers, okay, because she's a field supervisor. So one of her workers said that a block was politically hostile to FEMA, and so they decided to avoid it altogether. But this is the first time we're hearing this, and on top of that, it just so happened to be that the hostile people happen to be Trump supporters. So that's what makes it such a hot topic, because does this happen to others as well as Trump supporters?
So if you turned in reports to your supervisors that state political hostility for the people in the field, those reports exist.
Yes, hence why I also sent you screenshots where they're deleting files now from my computer. So FEMA says they fired me, but I still have access to the systems and their applications. And while I was in an interview yesterday, I noticed that my files were being deleted in my name, and I could not have been doing that while I was talking to Madison. So FEMA is very well aware of the incidents that take place, not just with my crew, but with all of the crews in the state that's declared. And instead of just saying, hey, this is how we're going to mitigate it to protect our people, they decided to fire me and make sure Donald Trump knows that they are loyal to him because they fear retribution.
Okay, so I was with her all the way up until her last statement. So she's basically saying that FEMA is purposely ignoring her reports of political hostility because of Donald Trump. Now, mind you, all of this was happening before Donald Trump was ever elected, because he just got elected literally 7 days ago. So she's basically saying that maybe FEMA, knew that this was going on, and now they fear, retribution from Donald Trump because he's now elected. Like, this doesn't make sense. I don't know what to make of what she just said, but the other things, if you do have reports, then FEMA should be listening to it. So it just goes to prove what Donald Trump said about FEMA, that the leadership at FEMA is just horrible, that they don't know what they're doing. They don't give protections to these people. They aren't really helping them in the field. Then that would essentially go to what Donald Trump was saying. So now we're going to get into what she did, the number of homes, and how the FEMA process works and how her teams work, and so on and so on, and see what she has to say about that and if it combats the mainstream narrative. All right, here we go.
So first of all, how many homes did the team that you were over, how many homes did they survey?
Oh, I don't have that number. That's why I showed you the map.
What? So
that map gives you an aerial view of one specific area.
So what you sent us were all the homes that your team processed.
Yes.
So we're talking. So this is one map right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a second map right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a third map right here. This is the fourth map right here. And look, that's the fourth. So all those orange dots, those are all of the homes your teams processed.
Yes, sir.
So out of all of those homes, your teams encountered 20 homes that were defined as politically hostile.
Mm-hmm.
Did the teams under you, did they note specifically the addresses of each one of those homes?
No, they do not. Again, we do not do PII. So when you drop a dot, it just shows logistical coordinates, and then you just put the details there. But it doesn't show the street.
So I'm curious, why not? So for instance, if I'm a worker and I encountered this, I need to be able to say it was 2550 and not 2552.
Correct.
FEMA does not do that. They do not allow you to disclose personal information.
And that right there is a problem, okay? Because it's exactly what Roland said, and that actually was a great question. Because if you're saying that a home on this street is politically hostile, then how is another canvasser to know that, right? So now you get into, let's just say someone doesn't want you coming knocking on their door, all right? So if they don't know the home, they potentially knock on that same door and annoy that resident even further. Like, this is inefficient. Like, a dot on a street isn't going to help me. It just says that I went to that street. Like, so it goes to the point that Trump was making, that FEMA is inefficient, amongst other things they were doing with, whatever money. They definitely wasn't spending it on logistics and, better technology, so people actually that are on the ground could do a better job with.
So, for example, there were two gentlemen on my team. They had an uncomfortable encounter. For example, they were told drain the swamp and some other kind of crazy statements. So I know that house was on this street, a specific street, and I know what color it was. And then if I have another team member tell me on that same street that they had another incident, it's like, okay, this is starting to become a trend. We probably need to pull out, because nobody needs to work in a hostile work environment.
Okay.
So essentially, I would like to see what defines as the hostile environment, because saying drain the swamp isn't hostile. Like, that's not hostile. That, to me, that wouldn't qualify for you not to go on that street, right? And so now you have another worker who says, hey, they said drain the swamp to me too. So you don't go on the rest of the street because it's a hostile street. Like, this is, I don't know, this is a slippery slope, because to me, it's not a good enough reason to skip a whole block. And Roland's question about the addresses would definitely help, because how are we to know that wasn't the same person? Oh, the color of the house. I don't know. Like, this to me, it doesn't seem correct from her or FEMA. All right. Because at the end of the day, you guys are given your discretion of where y'all want to go and who y'all want to encounter with. So it does seem like you're politically picking who you're going to help.
Let's say there are 30 homes on that street.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say one of your field workers encounters hostility from 3 homes on that street.
Mm-hmm.
Do they continue to canvass each home on that street, or do?
That's when I make an executive decision and I send a report over to my TFL.
I'm sorry. What's a TFL?
Task force lead.
Okay.
And I'll let you know that we've had now several, because 3 is several from me, poor encounters on this street that have made the team uncomfortable. And I will let him know we need to move on from here. But the important thing is here, once we start seeing a trend, for example, if they just so happen to have these Trump campaign signs in front of their home, and that's the characteristic that's coming along with that, we have to proceed with precaution.
So you made an executive decision to say that because you've encountered the people with the Trump signs 1, 2, or 3 times, say drain the swamp, or say something that you consider as hostile, and you consider 3 as several, as you just said, then you make the executive decision to say, no, I'm not going to go down the street. And possibly you might not encounter anyone. If you see a Trump sign in the yard, then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, from my experience dealing with these people, they don't really want us there. So let's skip this street with these Trump signs in the yard. So yes, ma'am, I am required to believe by your own words that yes, you did in fact skip people with Trump signs in their yard.
That's the thing. Our superiors know that. We have constant conversations about keep your people safe. If your people are uncomfortable, then just don't go.
So explain this to me, please. Explain this to me. Okay. So I'm just trying to understand what that means. So again, if I'm on a street and it has 20 homes,
mm-hmm.
and there are 8 homes on that street with Trump signs,
mm-hmm.
and my team has faced hostility from 3 of the homes that have signs,
mm-hmm.
what happens next?
I inform my TFL, my direct report, hey, we're again experiencing hostile encounters. We're moving on to another street. We're not canvassing those homes.
So again, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's the directive too. Like, honestly, he has called me multiple times and says, your job is to keep the team safe.
I'm sorry. When you say he, who's he?
Oh, Chad Hershey.
Okay. Who's Chad Hershey?
The TFL my assigned TFL for this deployment.
So Chad Hershey has told you what?
That if your team is uncomfortable and they do not feel safe, do not go to those homes. Go and canvass the other homes. Your job is to keep these people safe.
What they are accusing you of, ma'am, is exactly what you did. Now, whether or not it's against FEMA's rules and regulations is another thing, right? Because this may just be their culture. But you did exactly what you're being accused of, because you have encountered those types of encounters from your own words of people maybe saying stuff like drain the swamp, or telling you that they don't like FEMA for whatever reason. They think FEMA's doing a horrible job, is not a good enough reason for you to say this is a hostile environment. No one shot you. No one put their hands on you. If, just by, your own admission, because I'm sure you would tell if someone put their hands on you, right? So by all of this that we're hearing, you just genuinely, had the discretion to not go to these homes that had Trump signs because of 1, 2, or 3 encounters. And I understand not having, they're not giving people security, but to say you're not going to somebody's house because they say drain the swamp or other stupid things, it's not a good enough reason, ma'am. It's just not. Now, it seems like from the constant, reference of Donald Trump, it does seem like she has a little bit of Trump derangement. Okay. But, you still have to do your job, ma'am. Like, you still have to do your job. But here she goes into a little bit of how homes are skipped.
Trump was there in 2019. Did this, what you're describing, did this happen in 2009 or 2020 when we had federal disasters?
I can't speak for that because I wasn't deployed on those disasters. You would have to ask those people. But what I am here to do is to tell you that homes are skipped. The American people need to know that. If we are approached with hostility or our people feel uncomfortable, we do disengage.
And when you say with hostility, that's from anybody, whether there's a truck. Well, I'll ask you this way. Have you ever noted any hostility from people who had Biden, Harris wall signs, or did you report any hostility for people who had no signs in their yards?
There you go. Yes, that is the whole point.
On both counts?
Yes, on both accounts.
So essentially what she's saying, by her own words, that she also gets hostility from Biden walls people as well. So, and she said that she noted it. So if she's noting these things, right, then what then is what the hostility that she's getting from the Biden and Walls people, right? Because you can make a case for Trumpers, as they like to call it, and say, oh, well, they hate FEMA because what Trump is saying or whatever. But what would be the case for Biden and Walls? Like, they believe in FEMA, right? So, and they don't say anything against FEMA. So what would be the case for that? And so I don't know. It seems a little fishy, because why would they push back on you? What would be the reason for that, right? And then let's just say I believe her. All right. Then your officials are the ones hiding this information, because then that would essentially make their firing of you wrong. It would be a wrongful termination, because this is the culture and this is what you're allowed to do. If people on both sides do this and you are reporting this and nobody's doing nothing about it. If nobody's doing anything about it, then you essentially would be in the right. So I'm very interested in seeing how this turns out, because essentially you have a lawsuit. If everything that you're saying on that side, as far as the Harris Waltz, would be a lawsuit, because you're now not discriminating, because you did it for Harris Waltz and you did it for Trump. So lastly, I want to get into what she said about being threatened and having to leave her home. Here we go.
You talked about the threats that you've received. Have you had to leave your home for your safety?
Oh, yes. I'm in a secure location.
So as a result of these threats, you no longer living in your home.
Correct.
Your family is impacted. You've been fired from your civilian job, and you're simply out here just dealing with this day by day.
Correct.
Anything else, Marnie, like that?
I do implore you guys to talk to the DSA crew leads. I do implore you guys to talk.
One second. When you say that, you said the DSA crew leads?
Mm-hmm.
What is DSA?
It was disaster survivor assistant, crew leads, and specialists. They will tell you the truth. And I do implore you all to ask FEMA, why is it permissible for their partnering company to go and breach confidentiality and to leak documents to the public? Why is that relationship so important that they have not gone after them and held them accountable for their egregious actions?
Do you regret working with FEMA?
No, I enjoy the work that I've done for FEMA and for this country, but I do regret for believing in a system that did not care about me the way I cared about them. Clearly, the way they've mishandled me, the way they have exploited me, the way they have mistreated me, clearly shows that the relationship was one-sided. And a lot of us feel that way.
So essentially, you feel the same way that the disenfranchised people who you say were politically hostile feel. They feel that FEMA was very one-sided. They feel that FEMA did not take care of them. They feel that FEMA is definitely an organization that does not handle things well. And FEMA did the exact same thing to you. And FEMA is under the what? What is this happening under? The Biden-Harris administration. And they really wanted us to vote for Biden and Harris. You know, when Biden was in before they ousted him, and when Harris was injected. They wanted us to vote for her, and she went down there. And they wanted us to vote for her, knowing the incompetence. She said everything was fine, everything was great. They said that they spoke with the governor. They said that everything was perfectly fine. And the governor even said it wasn't, but he wasn't going to make it political. He was just trying to get as much help as he could. The governor, Ron DeSantis. So, ma'am, you're essentially saying what the constituents are saying. So you guys just saw all of that with the FEMA employee that was fired and what she had to say in her interview. And I'll even leave a link to the entire interview. I think it's about 30 minutes, 36 minutes, something like that. So you can hear everything she said. But those were the most impactful points to me, right? To speak to exactly what's going on. But essentially, I want you to also see what updates about this whole mess and whole situation and what everyone is saying. Here we go.
FEMA has fired one of its supervisors after it was discovered that in the wake of Hurricane Milton last month, she apparently instructed relief workers going door to door in Florida to skip the homes of Trump supporters. It is outrageous and on the surface would seem to validate concerns from those on the right who accuse the agency of punishing Republicans by withholding aid in the aftermath of Hurricanes Helene and Milton. Up to this point, there was really nothing concrete to back that up. And it's a story that sort of got buried over the weekend with everything else going on. The Daily Wire broke it, reporting that at least 20 homes with Trump signs or flags were skipped from the end of October and into November due to the guidance. This happened in and around Lake Placid, Florida, where a tornado touched down in the days leading up to Milton, making landfall, and which saw wind and flood damage following the storm. 20 families, at least, apparently didn't get the help they may have needed from the very agency whose job it is to help them when disaster strikes, because they displayed public indicators of their political affiliation. That is horrifying. But let's also remember, FEMA got rid of this person pretty quickly. There's nothing at this point to indicate her guidance came from above. The supervisor, Marnie Washington, is also now under investigation by FEMA's Office of Special Counsel, the House Oversight Committee, and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also launching their own investigations. By the way, kudos to the FEMA workers who blew the whistle. Congressman, do you know anything more about how this happened?
No, we don't have any more details. Obviously, Oversight's going to launch an investigation. I support that investigation. As someone who was the former director of emergency management in Florida, a Democrat in a Republican administration, one of the things that is sacrosanct in the emergency management industry is to stay nonpartisan, apartisan. Disasters don't affect Democrats or Republicans. They don't hit MAGA or progressives. They hit neighborhoods. They hit communities. They hit all people. What happened in Florida is unacceptable. We could not have Americans not getting care based on their political affiliation.
All right, so you guys just saw that. So essentially here you have the ex-FEMA worker really saying that this is the culture, this is exactly what she did. What she's being accused of is what she did. But she's saying that it was the norm. This is what, they always do. So again, that is the FEMA culture. So it feeds into that Americans are not being represented, that they are being discriminated against based on their political affiliations. Okay. But you also have what this woman is saying, that she had discretion and that she could have did something else, but she chose not to. All right. Because of 1, 2, 3 accounters, she says, or as she calls them, several accounters. 3 is several to her. And she decided that, people saying drain the swamp, or that they don't like, Harris that's politically hostile to her. And it was a hostile environment for her employees. So she made the decision to pull out and not go on a lot of these streets that had Trump signs. Ma'am, that is discriminatory, especially in emergency situations. People are going to be high strung. All right. And I also, put it on FEMA. You have these people going to people's doors, not knowing what they're going to encounter. They have no police presence, nothing. Like, you have money. Like, we know FEMA has a lot of money, and also where they have been spending it as well. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to update you guys on this whole thing that has been buried because the media isn't talking about this. And she's deciding to, go full steam ahead with this. She's saying that, hey, they fired me when I did nothing wrong. And FEMA is pushing back on it, saying that they're disgraced by it. And, this should never happen. But Ron DeSantis is launching an investigation to get down to the bottom of it. So we'll stay on this and see how this develops. But at the end of the day, it's wrong. These people deserve better. And it doesn't matter if they're for Trump or Harris. They're Americans. So that's my take. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Let me know what you thought about the ex-worker of FEMA and what she had to say on what she did. And let me know if you think, hey, she was just trying to protect herself and her workers, and she did what she thought was best. Or if you're like me and you think, hey, why doesn't FEMA have better policies on how to document such houses so that FEMA workers don't, encounter the same people? Because I'm inclined to believe from what she said that they're probably encountering the same people because they cannot put the house number. They cannot put the address, which is ridiculous. It's just a dot on a map. It makes no sense. But I could be wrong. So get down in the comments. Let me know. Like, comment, and subscribe. And you can always support as well with a super chat or super thanks down in the comments. Or you can support on Cash App, officially Mika. That's spelled MICCA, officially Mika at Cash App. It's your girl Mika, and I'm out. Thank you for watching. Peace.